we just welcome back David Harper. It's good to see you again, David.
Oh, well, I must say, it's very lovely to be here. It really is.
How was the last few weeks been for you?
Very busy, darting all over the place, as ever. But we were just talking outside, these are the kind of things that I now love doing. It's so stimulating and exciting, and I look forward to it, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't plan anything. We don't know. I don't know what you're going to ask, and I certainly don't know what I'm going to say. And you don't know what you're going to ask. And I think it's just, I read a quote from C.S. Lewis today, and it said something like, "There's nothing nicer than sitting around a fireplace with a group of Christian friends." And he was comparing it to posh dinners and going to balls and fancy homes for weekends. There's nothing greater. And that's what I feel here. And I'm sure there are some skeptics out there, and hopefully by the end of this, you might become one of those Christians. That's the reason we do it. I had a conversation with someone recently who was very skeptical, and he was questioning why a Christian would want to pass on the good news of something that we've discovered. And it just got me thinking. I said, "Well, why do you think?" He said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you why. They don't get money. They don't get praise. You don't get any thanks. You get a sense of joy.
Yeah.
That you've passed them something which is free and joyful."
Yeah.
So that's what I think these things are about. If we could pass it on to a few people,
yeah,
I think it's been very well worthwhile.
Yeah, it's something life-giving, isn't it?
It is life-giving.
It's a joy to share.
It's a joy to share, and again, fundamentally, it's free. We spend our lives, I know I did, searching for things that cost money. I always thought that if it has a value to you, if it's going to bring you pleasure, it's obviously going to cost me money. So I need to get money to get that pleasure. Whatever that pleasure is, I need to have lots of money to do it.
Yeah.
And it never came. But this, the free thing, it is fantastic. It is fantastic. It is awesome. You couldn't make it up. Well, as C.S. Lewis said, didn't he? If Christianity was something we were making up, we'd make it easier.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because it's not easy all the way, but it is joyful and freeing. Yes. So there you go. Anyway, we could go on all night. We wouldn't even touch the topics that we're supposed to be talking about.
Well, let's look at the topics for tonight. We started big with the cosmos and the existence of, is there a God? We then came in a little bit. We talked about humanity and evolution and where life comes from.
Yeah.
We then brought it down just to one person.
Yes.
And we looked at the life of Jesus.
Sure.
Who is the only person there's none like him.
No.
In all of history.
You can search every religion in the world. There's nothing like him. There's nobody like him.
Yeah. But now let's bring it down to a different small focus, and that's us.
Us, yes.
Us as individuals, us as society. And we're going to look at the idea tonight of morality. We're going to look at the soul and what the soul is, and that is the proof there is a soul. And then one thing that came up last week that we said we'd come back to was the Shroud of Turin as well. So we're going to come to that towards the end of the night.
Okay.
But let's start with morality itself. The idea of right and wrong as an evidence for God. How did you arrive at looking into morality as an issue in the first place?
Well, I've got to admit, I'd never thought about morality. It really just hadn't occurred to me. I knew it was real, I think, because there hasn't been any society in the history of mankind that hasn't had a basic set of morals.
Yeah.
They are ingrained within us, seemingly. And our morals, the moral law that's in us, is exactly the same as a limb. You can see an arm and a leg. You know they're there. But we all have these morals, inherent morals. So to be kind and caring and thoughtful and selflessness and courageous and brave. All of these things have been celebrated by every tribe of human that has ever lived. And they're not taught.
No.
They're not taught. People might say, well, aren't morals taught? No, they're not. They're more than knowing in the head. They are a feeling inside you. It's your own moral compass. And we probably all know, in actual fact, that even when you break a moral law, very often you feel so guilty you have to admit it. I mean, some people go to prison because they can't live with their moral conscience. And so morals are real. And there has never been any society in the world that has ever celebrated the opposite of morals. They've never celebrated cowardice, cruelty, unkindness, selfishness. They've never celebrated it.
Now that's interesting, because if we were to go evolutionary, the idea of the fittest survive, how does morality work its way into that argument?
Well, with great difficulty. Because an atheist will tell you that morals are not inherent within us. They're just something in your head that humans made up in an attempt to live together harmoniously so we could build societies and trade and all of that. And that sounds sort of on the surface of things quite feasible. But if you believe in the Darwinian evolution theory, it makes no sense whatsoever. Because the theory of Darwin's evolution is cruel and ruthless and brutal and ugly. Yeah. It's proud to be those things, unintelligent.
I mean, just for example, and I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but
go on, Luke.
But the idea that we look after the old.
Yeah.
Evolutionary makes no sense.
Why are you including this audience?
I was spreading my arms generally.
Unbelievable.
But evolutionary.
Yes.
Again, please do not quote me out of context here. Evolutionary, older people would be a drain on resources.
Oh my, do not clip this video.
That have no benefit to a society.
Gets worse.
Hang on. Evolutionary.
Yeah.
But we all know that's not true.
Yeah.
We all know we should honour our parents and the elderly amongst us. There's something built into us to say, no, it's just to look after the elderly. But I struggle to see how we get to that evolutionary.
Yeah, it really doesn't make any sense. So you can't use evolution to describe the brutality of evolution on the one hand, and then the kindness of it on the other. So to care for people weaker than you, to feel that you want to look after your neighbour, or God forbid, give your life for another person, which has been done millions of times. And under the right circumstances, I'm certain we all would do it. That really goes against the theory of evolution. Evolution tells you that you should take from the weak. You should destroy them and steal from your neighbour. That's the theory of evolution. That's what they say happened. And that's the survival of the fittest.
And even if you take their argument that, okay, we've built in these rules into society to help us grow and be safe ourselves.
Yeah.
Acts of selflessness like that don't make sense.
No, they don't.
They just don't.
No, they don't. So it's a real trouble for atheists to deal with. And that is the moral argument for God, the moral law argument for God. You know, you have the fine-tuning argument in the universe for God. This is another argument for God. Because when you think about it, moral laws are laws. So we live by laws. We drive outside and it's probably a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and we see the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit and we know it's a law. It's been set in place by somebody at some point at the local council. So there is a lawgiver for every single law. And so when we look at the laws within us, which are written within us, we're like a stick of rock. You break us in half and you will see these moral laws. There has to be, the argument goes, there has to be a moral giver, a lawgiver, someone who came up with these standards. And the Christian argument, of course, is that it is God who is the moral lawgiver, and he gives us these very basic moral laws as a starting point to build good society. societies.
And that's right across humanity, with exceptions. There's always exceptions.
Well, yeah, but yes and no. Even someone might say, well, what about the cannibals living in a jungle somewhere? But they still have moral laws. They kill and eat their enemies.
But
it's pushing the morals a little bit one side, but
not their tribe.
But not their tribe.
So
they look after their children, their elderly, and all of that.
And I know there's more psychological exceptions, with people who lack empathy and things like that. And that's different.
Yes.
But everybody knows when that's not normal.
That's right.
In any society throughout the world. So if humanity had just come up with these rules, you would expect to see across a broad spectrum of the world those rules to be all different.
Yes, and broken continually, with cultures and governments and countries coming along who just abolish all moral laws. That's never happened.
Yeah, people can make excuses for things within it.
Of course.
But they always find ways to justify it within the moral law that exists.
That's right.
That's interesting. So, for there to be a moral law, you're saying there has to be a moral law giver.
That there is a designer of all laws. This is the law of causation that we've talked about before. Everything that has ever happened, everything that has ever been created must have an explainable cause. It's the scientific law of causation. Of course, we know that law doesn't apply to God because God is outside of time, matter, and space.
Yes.
But it applies to everything else. So where do these laws come from? We have to ask that question.
Yeah. And the idea that it has to be fixed, I heard a great example on this once. I can't remember who said it, but when you're in the car and there's a bus next to you and the bus starts to move and you feel like you're going backwards because what you think of as a fixed point moves, it throws you.
Yes.
And the idea that that could be the case in morality, it would just mess with society. There has to be a fixed moral law, otherwise society doesn't work.
That's right.
And we don't get to make those rules. Those rules are given to us. Now
they are felt within us.
Yeah. Now that just throws out a question, because one way of looking at that is, well, if we talk about the moral law given by God, we've got the Ten Commandments, for example. But these can exist outside of people with faith as well.
Oh, yes.
And do.
Absolutely. Of course they do.
So they're not just transmitted.
No.
They are something that's inherent in people who don't believe in God.
Oh, completely. And that's normal across all societies. But when you look for a reason for these morals, there can only be a creator reason or something that humans have made up over time.
Yeah.
And the humans made up over time doesn't stack up. It doesn't. No. Because, again, you could be born in a undiscovered tribe in the Amazon or New York City. It wouldn't matter. You would be born with these morals. Yeah. The coincidence is just too great.
The idea that stealing is wrong,
that's right,
would be built in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so as you're looking at this, how was this speaking to you?
Well, it was all just like these fascinating rabbit holes of information. And of course, the idea of morals leads on to consciousness. So I'd never addressed the topic of morals. It never occurred to me to. And it never occurred to me to address the idea of consciousness. And if you read about consciousness, it is intertwined with morals. Mm-hmm. And so you have to ask yourself again, what is consciousness and where does it come from? So we all know what consciousness is. It's the awareness of who we are, where we are, particularly the sense of love and care and morals and the knowledge that we're going to die and the questions that evolve around that. But the question is, what is consciousness? And it's brilliant, this, because you can ask any atheist this question, a staunch scientist, academic chap who's an atheist. If you ask him what is consciousness, he will not be able to answer it. He may try to say it's chemical reactions in your brain, possibly, but nobody knows. Nobody knows what consciousness is, where it is, if it's in the body or outside of the body, but we're all aware that it exists.
Because atheists would have the idea that everything we think we feel,
Yeah.
everything we feel emotionally is all just chemicals.
Chemical reactions in the brain.
But yet, it takes a person to be able to describe that
Yeah.
with consciousness. It's weird because you think, well, if I'm just... It goes back, I guess, to I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
There's something in me that can think about that.
That's right.
How can that be just something that's a chemical process?
And also, how can you trust a brain with these chemical explosions that was designed, well, not designed, that was built by accident,
Yeah.
unintelligently? If your brain was designed unintelligently, how can you trust that it is intelligent? You wouldn't do that with a computer. If I said to you, I know nothing about computers, but I'm going to make you a computer. Out of all these funny little bits, I'm just going to knock it together. Will you trust it with your banking and your private correspondence? I hope the answer would be no. And if I said to you it made itself over a few thousand years in mud and water, you definitely wouldn't accept that it was intelligent.
Yeah, it becomes a self-defeating argument. It's like the idea of saying there's no such thing as truth.
Yeah.
Is a statement that can't be true.
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no.
But it's the same thing, isn't it? That you wouldn't trust a brain to say that there's no such thing as thought.
That's
and there
right.
is something in us that, and we'll get into it, I guess, a little bit. There is something different about human consciousness than any other consciousness that we see.
Well, we are the only animals with true consciousness. I mean, there is arguments that some animals have form of consciousness, but we're certainly the only animals with a consciousness like ours, you know, an awareness of death and love and all of these things. We are very unique in that way.
And again, evolutionary, that makes no sense.
It, again, makes no sense whatsoever. You see, evolution would tell you, take love. Love is connected to consciousness. The sense of love, being in love, caring for people, that is all part of your consciousness, which we're going to get to the soul because it's all connected to the soul. But an atheist will tell you that a sense of love is only something that evolution evolved so you would procreate. So you love someone, so you want to have children with them. That's their explanation of love. Now, a Christian would say, no, love is something felt within. It's not just a desire to create children. It's something much deeper than that and within us. And then the atheist will say that the sensation of heartbreak is just an evolutionary thing to encourage you to go and find another partner quickly so you can procreate. Well, of course, heartbreak is exactly the opposite. If you're heartbroken, you've lost somebody, your first instinct is not to go out and find a new one the following day. It's a long recovery process. But so the theory of evolution doesn't make any sense there.
Yeah. And so we have this idea of consciousness. Maybe we'll pause before we get to the soul for questions, just on morality itself and consciousness. But consciousness needs to be somewhere.
And nobody knows where it is. That's the thing. So you can ask a scientist, where is it? And they cannot explain it. Is it part of a body? It's as real as an organ. It's as real as your heart. But we don't know where it is. It cannot be explained. And you can Google this, and it is a bit bonkers. Can consciousness be explained? And no. People have been fighting over it for centuries.
Yeah, it's just, and nobody can answer. Yeah, everybody who is hearing this is experiencing consciousness in order to hear this and understand it.
Their consciousness is reacting with this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a part of you that we know is you.
Exactly. Have you ever met two identical people?
No.
Never.
No.
Never. I mean, we're formed with, obviously, DNA that inherits certain characteristics from our parents, obviously, but also your consciousness, connected to your soul, is absolutely unique. No two humans are the same. And, you know, the Christian view of love, again, is when two souls come together. It's not a meat and bone thing. It's something beyond that. It's not a chemical reaction in your brain when you sense love. It's something else. And I would argue that it is the consciousness, the souls coming together.
That seems like a good point to to open
Yeah.
for questions.
Yeah.
Because we'll come to the soul in a minute. So does anyone have any questions about the idea of morality or the idea of consciousness? Jill at the back there.
I am a devout Christian.
Yes.
I place myself there first of all before I ask the question. But I've also nursed patients who have had a brain injury, and there is a scale of unconsciousness that is very much linked to the activity of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And also I've seen the complete change in behaviour and personality, complete change due to a brain injury. Can you just explain? I don't want to put you on the spot, David.
No, it's good.
If anything, I'll put Luke on the spot.
No, I'm happy to take this because I think this is fascinating. Well, there's a chap I write about called Dr. Michael Egner who addresses this. He's a brain surgeon, neuroscientist, and he says he's convinced after spending 30 years examining brains and carrying out experiments on them, him and another doctor called Dr. Winfield Penfold, fabulous name.
That's a good name.
I know, over 1 million experiments on brains. And they say that the brain is an instrument. The human body is a machine, and it's the most complicated machine known to man. The brain is an instrument, and it's the most complicated instrument known to man. But the brain needs a soul to help it function. It has this material function, it's like a circuit board, but it needs, like an instrument, it needs a conductor. And so they say that the brain performs certain functions, and you can have a terrible brain injury, and of course it will affect so many different things. But the soul is the overrider. So the soul maybe can be affected through a brain injury, but we talked about the split brain operation, where a brain, you'll know about this, it can be severed in two with no material connections, and yet the brain, it's proven, can still communicate with one another. That's this is their argument, your soul connecting like a Wi-Fi. So a terrible brain injury will affect somebody, but the soul is like, if you have a computer, the computer is your brain. You, as the person who's operating the computer, can override that computer. You are the soul. Would that make sense to you?
I mean, what you're talking about, I guess, we take a brain injury, or let's take something like dementia, for example. There's something that happens physically that has a huge effect on someone's cognition, on someone's ability to relate to the world, and personality as well. But the idea of this, but that's the physical. The idea of the soul being something that's outside that. Now, the soul might not be able to attach itself to what's going on in that same way. So there's clearly a meeting point between the physical and the eternal there that's going on.
Yeah.
There's the part of us that's us, that is eternally us. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Specific. Now, we might be using the word soul as this meeting point, but there's a part of us that's eternally us, that even though the physical is wasting away, the inner man is being renewed daily. There's something, there's the eternal part of us and there's the temporary part of us. It's the eternal us. It's the us that's going to live forever. It's the us that, when we're absent from the body, we're present with the Lord. Now, we can use the word soul as the meeting point between the physical and the spiritual, but there's something other about us than just the physical. I think that's the point you're making there.
And I think if the argument is, if there is a soul, then the soul should fix the physical, that doesn't stack up, because the physical has a lifespan, and the soul is an energy. And we know, here's another question you can offer to people who don't believe. You can ask them, what is energy? Light, as an example. Light is an energy, and no scientist can actually explain really what energy is. They know that they can harness it and use it, but they can't fully explain it. It's crazy. Energy just recycles itself. And the human being, we now know, emits a tiny element of light. So doctors can look at humans now under specialist equipment and see a glow of light. And they hope one day to be able to analyse that light to determine the condition of the person, their soul or whatever. And when the person dies, the light goes out. We know that light is an energy and it cannot die. Again, if you don't believe me, Google it. Can energy die? No, it's impossible. It has to be transferred. So
this is
yeah.
I'm going to edit this out because it's not going to work. Our computer at the back there, we send sound to it from there to the computer, yeah, via a USB cable that goes in the computer into a box, okay? Now, sometimes that cable messes up and all we get is garbled sound that goes into the computer, yeah? But just because the cable's messed up doesn't mean the original source is wrong, it's still right. It's just the pathway that's causing the issue. And so I'd say it like that. What you're getting out the other end is just garbled and it's not what we started with at all. But it's the pathway that's the issue, not the source. So we don't stop being us, but there's something not getting through. Does that make sense?
There's a blockage cause. So I think the soul, the spirit, works hand in hand with the brain. That's the argument from the two doctors that I talk about in the book, after 1 million experiments on brains, where what they did, it was fascinating. So the brain has no pain receptors. So when someone has a brain operation, they can very often be awake and they can take part in these wild experiments. And a neurosurgeon can press certain parts of the brain and make you do things, put your arm in the air, laugh, remember something. There are certain things that they can make you do, but there are other things that they cannot make you do, no matter how much they try. They can't create abstract thought. So they can't make you consider what love is. They can't make you wonder what freedom means. What would it be like to lose my freedom? They can't make you recall certain memories. There are certain things that they can't do, and they are absolutely certain that the brain is a machine. It can do some things, but it needs the soul to interact with the very delicate emotional side.
It's like that, even if the line's garbled, it doesn't deny the existence of the sound desk. It has to be there, or there's nothing to send down anyway.
Yeah.
Can
I just lighten the load a little bit here? When you examine a human brain under a microscope, it resembles very much the Milky Way, which is fascinating. And your brain has more connections in it, like plug sockets.
Oh, so it's that how it just the sort of the way
just how it's
looks.
put together. Just right. Again, it's not the soul thing, but it's pointing to a creator. So it looks like the universe, and this is a good connection when we talk about the Shroud of Turin, in actual fact. And there are more plug sockets in your brain, those connections that you've just been talking about, the sound to the computer, than there are stars in the Milky Way. So just to have a little poke at evolution again, you tell me that was designed with no intelligence and all by accident. It's bonkers beyond comprehension. But that machine does need assistance. That's the argument from Christian neuroscientists who all, when I talk about them in the book, I almost always focus in on atheist scientists who were then converted to Christianity through their own scientific research. Not Christians who were born and bred Christians who have been, some might say, indoctrinated and become surgeons, people who started out with a hard atheist view. So that, for me, I like things in simple terms. I think the brain is a magnificent thing, but it does need a little help from the eternal soul, the eternal spirit.
When you said the mind is like the Milky Way, I thought you were suggesting there's a lot of empty space.
Well, sometimes it feels that way.
Paul.
Again, many thanks for coming, David.
Thanks,
Great discussion tonight already.
Brilliant.
Very challenging. For what you've said, for me personally, I agree with it. I certainly believe that, I'm a moral man within myself. I know what's right or wrong, and I certainly know the guilt I feel when I go against what that should be. When I become a Christian, and then, that understanding that God has placed that within each and every person, I guess a conundrum for me would be when we see displayed in people who have would appear no morality at all. You know, the persistent burglar who has no thought of the damage or the hurt that he causes, consistently going into different people's homes, ransacking them, you know, stealing and the trauma that comes from that, to the most horrific of people who would torture other people just for the sheer joy of it. Those people themselves also, if my understanding that God has placed within each and every one of us. And I wonder how you feel. How was that so overwritten when God's placed it into us?
Would you agree? I think at this lesser or greater degree. And I think people can numb themselves as well, of course, can't they, to morals? We've all been guilty of that in one way or another, you know, maybe in a lesser degree than someone ransacking someone's home or killing. But, you know, you can become a numb human. There's no doubt about that. And I think that would explain that. But I would say that they were born inherently with a moral compass. It's just that they've learned to not listen to it. And you know, maybe their morals might be different in other areas of their lives. Who knows? But there are instances, of course, of people redeeming themselves, particularly when they find Christ. You know, that they can commit heinous crimes and come back from it and find Christ, or even people that don't find Christ can sometimes turn themselves in because of terrible crimes. So I think they still have it, just to a lesser or greater degree.
I think what that does is confirm the existence of evil and the existence of sin and the existence of corruption. And unfortunately, sin has a numbing effect. It always does. When you do something that you know is wrong, it hurts the first time. It doesn't hurt so much the second time. 10th time, you're barely bothered. And we numb ourselves to things by giving in. Because when we do something we know is wrong and still do it, when we know that's sin, but the more we do it, the less we feel the pain of that. And I think that actually does prove the existence of morality more. The fact that because even though there are exceptions out there to what we would perceive as morality, I think they would be condemned generally. For example, this mightn't be as true nowadays as it used to be, but at one time, you wouldn't find anyone disagreeing with you that Hitler was evil. Maybe now we're in a crazy world. But everybody roundly disagrees with what he did. Yeah? So that to me says, even though there are people who go against their conscience, there's something inbuilt in everyone that knows that was wrong. Everyone.
I think that's a very good point, actually. Very good point. Yeah. So there can be oddities, but the vast majority of people would see that as a wrongdoing.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the nature of sin is it does corrupt. And the more we give ourselves over to, the more corrupt we become. And that's, unfortunately, the fallen condition of man. But I actually think the fact that exists and is so roundly condemned, and it does to me prove the existence of God even more, because, you know, we anyway. I
think that's a very good point. Yeah. Does that answer it, Paul? Yeah, I think it does.
Okay. Yeah. We'll do one more with Lisa, and then because I'm keeping an eye on the clock, we'll move on.
What would you say to people that would say, well, actually, my moral values, is based on my upbringing, what I was taught, and things like that, rather than actually a soul-based? Because I believe in the soul, obviously, but what would you say to a skeptic who says, well, actually, I've just got the values inherited by my parents and my grandparents, etc., etc.?
Well, I think that goes back to the claim that some people make that morals are made up, they're a man-made construct, that it's just something that is taught. But the more you dig into that theory, the more you realise it doesn't make any sense. Because if you're a true, let's say, atheist who says that you're just a moral person because your parents taught you to be moral, those morals wouldn't really mean very much to you, because you can research this. Some atheists believe this, that morals are simply a man-made construct. They mean nothing at the end of the day, which means when you boil it down in the true atheistic world, it means that you can commit a moral crime, from a basic theft to torture to murder, but really, because this is just an evolutionary process, you shouldn't feel guilty about committing any moral crime. You are just doing what evolution has told you to do. You've broken no law apart from man-made law, and if you don't get caught by man, who will punish you for it, you should feel no guilt whatsoever. There aren't very many people like that. Even a hardcore atheist will feel that guilt. So I don't think it's an argument. I think it's something that I would have said a couple of years ago if somebody had asked me about morals. Well, I'm moral because I was told to be moral. But when you really dig into it, no, it's something that you feel more than think. Yeah, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Morals and consciousness all point to evidence of a soul.
I guess it moves on to is the evidence of existence outside of the physical.
Well, that would be consciousness,
Yes.
I suppose. And consciousness, when you think about it, is the perfect example of supernatural. So anything, if you Google what is supernatural, it's something that cannot be explained by natural or scientific laws, but is of a benefit.
Yeah.
It's something wild and great, but it cannot be explained by nature and it cannot be explained by science. And that is consciousness.
Yes.
And we know it exists. We can't touch it, we can't taste it, we can't weigh it, we can't see it. But it is a true example of the supernatural, which again just points to God. It points to a creator that we could never have enough intelligence ever to fully understand. Yeah. And I think the quicker I got to understanding that I'm just an ant in comparison, I can never understand everything. The sooner you just give in to this great power that, to me, quite clearly created everything, the better and the more content you are, and the jollier you become, bizarrely.
Is there anything that you, other than what came out in the questions, that the idea of the soul that you'd like to touch on?
No, I think that's it. Just think about love and all of your emotions and your imagination. This is something that these neuroscientists can't create in their experiments. They can't make somebody imagine something. They can't create free will, this idea of free will, own purpose. So there's too much evidence for something beyond the physical. It just doesn't make any sense that it's all going on in an unintelligently designed brain.
Yeah. I'm going to take a quote from your book.
Oh, go on. Yeah.
From you quoting C.S. Lewis.
Oh,
so
yes.
It's a double quote. And you're talking about C.S. Lewis is talking about reasonableness of atheism and says, supposing there was no intelligence behind the universe, no creative mind, in that case, nobody's designed my brain for the purpose of thinking. It is merely that when the atoms inside my skull happen for physical or chemical reasons to arrange themselves in a certain way, this gives me, as a byproduct, the sensation I call thought. But if so, how can I trust my own thinking to be true? It's like upsetting a milk jug and hoping that it splashes itself into a map of London.
That's right.
Which I think is really good.
It's brilliant.
But if I can't trust my own thinking, of course I can't trust the arguments of atheism. Therefore, I have no reason to be an atheist or anything else. Unless I believe in God, I cannot believe in thought. So I can't ever use thought to disbelieve in God.
There you go. We should have just said that and gone home.
I think that's really
well,
good.
I mean, C.S. Lewis, I quote C.S. Lewis a lot. I mean, he is just the 20th century's greatest apologist. And we can learn so much from him. I don't know whether you've read much C.S. Lewis, but just devour his words and repeat them. Makes you sound really clever.
So we've done the soul, and I think we've done everything that you would want to cover there. Let's now move on to the question that was asked last week by Greg about the Shroud of Turin.
Oh, right.
Now, this is an interesting one because we're getting into something now that I'm sceptical about.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to find your page in the book on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, not on the Kindle.
Well,
So,
okay,
let me start just by saying this is something that I've always been sceptical of.
absolutely.
And therefore,
Yeah,
because it's never been part of my
yeah.
path to God, I've never thought about it.
Okay,
So I wrote it off.
yeah,
Never
as most
give it-
people have.
Never give it any more thought.
Yeah, yeah.
But for you, it became a significant step.
It did.
When you started looking into it.
Because it was all tied into the resurrection.
Yes.
Because it was the resurrection that got me there.
Yeah.
You know, I came to the absolute conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
beyond any reasonable doubt, that the resurrection was a historical fact, as C.S. Lewis did. And then I had my spiritual drop moment.
Yes.
But the Turin Shroud was actually a really fundamental part of it. And I bet you, a lot of you in here are very sceptical about the Turin Shroud. They're all nodding heads.
Let's find out.
Yeah.
Who's sceptical about the Turin Shroud?
Wow. Wow. Okay.
So
Amazing.
So that's interesting. So
Yeah, okay.
take me. I am a skeptic on it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Tell
Well,
me why.
I've got notes in here, but rather than looking down, I'm just going to try and go from memory. So,
Feel free to use them if you
okay. Well, so I looked into the resurrection, and the Turin Shroud just came up, and new evidence for it. So, if we go back to when the Turin Shroud first became something, it wasn't very long ago, 1978.
Yeah.
And the Turin Shroud itself, as a physical thing, has been around since 1260 or thereabouts. 800 years it's been around. It's been a Catholic relic, which I think is a bit of a problem for many people, because a lot of Catholic relics have been a bit dodgy, to say the least.
Well, if you put together all the true pieces of the cross, you end up with a very
You
big
could build
cross.
a skyscraper, yes. Okay, so I think it's been tarred with that brush, but it's a bit like opening a jewellery box and going, it's rubbish, costume, gold plate, gold, and just writing it off. But in the bottom is a gold Krugerrand.
I guess there's something in your nature that would open a jewellery box and look for the gold.
I can tell you I've opened a few in my time. But I looked at it. So there's a chap called David Rolfe, he's a photography expert and filmmaker, still alive, and in 1978 he got an opportunity to examine the Turin Shroud. Now he thought it was nonsense, this Catholic nonsense. He was an atheist, and he got an opportunity to examine it. And being a photography expert, he knew that he would be able to explain how the shroud was made. Because up until that point, nobody could really explain how it was made. So just to give a background, some foundation, it's been absolutely categorically proven prior to this and post that it wasn't painted. There's no brush marks.
So there's no brush marks at all?
No, there's no pigment.
Okay.
It was not painted.
So it's not made with paint?
It is not made with paint, scientifically proven. We knew that in 1978.
Right, okay.
So nobody knew how it was made, but he's a photography expert, so he came in and he analysed it. He started out as a hard atheist. He then went, whilst studying it, he became quite agnostic.
Right.
And I can tell you, he ended up being a born-again Christian.
Well.
Because of his discoveries. The Turin Shroud, the image itself, is printed in negative. So the camera photography wasn't invented until the 19th century. We know for a fact we can date it back to about 1200. So when you photograph the Turin Shroud with a normal camera and produce it into positive, the image becomes clearer. So this was a hard thing to explain for a photography expert. How on earth did a medieval forger create an image in negative 600 or 700 years before the invention of the camera? First problem. In the 19th century, it was photographed. Mm-hmm. And they then realised, when they produced the photograph, that it was clearer and they realised, wow, that's
so
a negative.
At the negative and
it's a negative.
It made more sense as a negative.
It was
right.
The image is a negative.
Yeah.
So,
but it's a chemical reaction that produces the negative, isn't it, on light?
Yes, it is. Light, flash.
Yeah.
And we'll get on to that.
Yeah.
So he started looking at it. He could not explain, being a photography expert, how this thing was created. We then discover, by using an astronomical camera, something designed to photograph planets and stars. This is a specially designed camera designed by people like NASA, who look out into the far distant solar system, photograph planets, and the way it photographs, it can measure the depth, width, height of mountains and craters.
Wow.
This camera, again, Google it. This is going to sound crazy in a moment, right? You can Google it. It's scientifically proven. This camera does not work on Earth. If we used it and took a picture of you, it's a blurred mess. But when it looks out into space, it comes good. It was designed for space.
Right.
This camera was put over the Shroud of Turin, and the Shroud of Turin comes out in 3 dimension. So the Shroud of Turin is encoded with 3-dimension information. Scientifically proven.
What does that mean?
It means that when you photograph it, the image becomes 3-dimensional.
So
Features, swellings,
in that
markings.
it was laid over a 3D object when it was created? Or?
Well, yes, but what I mean is no image ever has been created to be read by a scientific 3-dimensional camera, ever.
Right.
But you have to ask the question, why was this image encoded with scientific 3-dimensional information? Why? Nobody can explain. You couldn't then, and they can't now.
Did they show you a photo?
Yes, you can look at the photos online. There's a website called shroud.com, lots of pictures there, but you can just Google it. In fact, if you look at my YouTube channel, my Antiques YouTube channel, I posted a video today on the Shroud, and I've put lots and lots of pictures to show this. So scientifically proven, this image is 3D encoded. So it has been examined, the blood. I mean, don't forget, okay, let me just fast forward a little bit to the 1980s, first of all. The British Museum got hold of it, and they were allowed some time with it, and they were allowed to take a snippet of the linen to carbon date it.
And this will be the debunking most of us will have heard
This is what you will know of and what I knew of, and I remember it in 1988. So they took a corner of the shroud and tested it, and it came back categorically DNA tested to be like 1260 to 1390. So it is 700 or 800 years old.
The carbon dated.
The carbon dated
as far as we knew it existed.
Yes, it
anyway.
debunked it.
Yeah.
But David Rolfe, this photography expert who became a born-again Christian because he was convinced it was real, always said this was nonsense because they took a clipping of the linen from one of the corners. Now, if you look at images, again, if you look at my YouTube channel, I've put them up, medieval images, several centuries old, of clergy holding up the Shroud of Turin to adoring audiences, holding by the corners. It is known that the shroud moved around the world. It was bought and sold. Bits were cut off, sold to royalty for christenings, for weddings, aristocracy, that kind of thing. Manhandling, it's been through several fires, and it has been invisibly mended through a very clever process, hundreds of times probably. So the worst section to take as a sample to DNA test was around the outside edge and the corner. That's the piece they took.
Those are the bit most likely to have been repaired.
They're the bit that's most likely been repaired. So just fast forward quickly, I'm going to go backwards and forwards in time here. It is absolutely agreed that the 1988 British Museum carbon dating test is debunked. It is not valid. All scientists agree it is not valid.
It's funny, nobody's ever told us that.
No, they won't, would they?
No.
They wouldn't. In 2022, they put an X-ray image over the shroud, and this measured dimensions, type of weave, cotton content, because in the sample that the British Museum took, there was cotton in it, proving that
It can't be original.
it can't be original.
Yeah.
And this particular X-ray imaging, scientists now say, points more to the shroud being 2,000 years old, not 800 years old.
Okay.
So there's that line of evidence. So now we look at, well, see, don't forget the British Museum said in 1988, they really scoffed at it. They said, if anyone believes in the shroud now, you might as well be a flat earther. That's what they said. And one of the professors from Oxford University said at the time, look, it's a fake. Somebody in the medieval ages bought a bit of old linen, faked it up and flogged it. They were his words.
And did they say how they faked it?
That's the problem. That's the problem. They never explained how it was faked. They couldn't. Right. David Rolfe then jumped in and said, I'll tell you what, if you're so confident that you know how it was made, I will give you $1 million if you can recreate the Shroud of Turin using medieval equipment. If you can do that, because you said it was easy to fake, I'll give you $1 million. That offer has been open to the British Museum for 40 years. They've never once taken it up. It is actually open to you. If you can actually do it, he will give you $1 million, because he is absolutely confident you will not be able to do it. So the image itself is less than a fraction of a millimetre deep on the linen, less than the width of a human hair. And so it doesn't go through the linen, it's only on the top surface. The blood stains, you can picture the shroud, I'm sure, you've got blood stains all over it, have been tested to be human blood, male blood, type AB. The stains around the heart have been tested to be watery. So this is where Jesus, I believe, was stabbed. Now, if you remember from the accounts from John, John was there, he witnessed Jesus get stabbed in the heart. A mixture of blood and water came out, which people scoffed at for 500 years and said, it's nonsense. It's just hyperbole. That doesn't happen. It wasn't until 500 or 600 AD that medical people realized that there is something called, I think, a periodical sac that encases the heart, and after death, it fills with water. And so when this person on the cross was stabbed, out came water and blood. The blood has been tested to be post-mortem blood. So whoever shed that blood was dead when they were stabbed in the heart. So remember also that it's been examined by countless science, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours of scientific analysis. Everybody agrees it is an exact model of a Roman crucified victim. So the blood flows in all the right angles. Mm-hmm. So if the arms are positioned like this, the blood flow is correct. The wounds to the head, there are 50 wounds to the head.
How many?
50.
50.
So we call this the crown of thorns. It was actually more like a helmet of thorns. So all of the injuries correspond exactly with the Roman crucifixion and the gospel accounts of Jesus' torture. So lacerations across his body, hundreds of them, including abrasions on the shoulders of the shroud, which sit above the lacerations. So the whip marks from a Roman whip, which is designed to rip the flesh out. So you can see these whip marks, and then you can see abrasions over the shoulders, which looks like the victim carried a very heavy beam of some sort, a rough beam which tore into the flesh. These are other lines of evidence. What is absolutely mind-boggling is if you look at the shroud, you can see that you cannot see any fingers. The fingers are tucked beneath the palms.
Right.
Now, scientifically proven, if a victim is pierced through the wrist, that piercing will either shed or damage the meridian nerve. If that nerve is damaged, then your thumbs will mechanically fold into your palms, showing that this victim was a real victim of crucifixion, because the thumbs are not visible. They're retracted into the palms. What other lines of evidence have we got? Are you looking? No, you're looking in the Gospel of John.
I am.
Okay, bear with me, because it is so involved, and you can see how this helped me.
There's the pollen.
Pollen, thank you. Actually, very good. Shout out these things. So, the shroud has been examined for pollen, plant pollen. And it's proven that it has Jerusalem pollen, it has pollen from Turkey, from France, and from Italy, and it shows the route that this thing travelled, starting in Jerusalem. and heading up, eventually ending up in Turin. So it has a pollen trail. You can see where it travelled.
Right.
Crucially, the pollen from Jerusalem only appears between February and April. Jesus was crucified in April, so the pollen matches. There's also dirt on the shroud, which sits below the blood. So there is dirt on the left knee, on the nose, elbow, I think, and a few other places. And it shows that the victim stumbled, and on the base of the feet. So he was barefoot, he stumbled and fell, dirt collected, and then later was crucified, and the dirt was covered by blood. The dirt sits below the blood, and the dirt is absolutely confirmed to be Jerusalem dirt.
Right.
It's powerful stuff, Luke. It's powerful.
Let me throw something
Any
in.
more, Paul? Can you?
Investigations and comparisons show the dimensions of the linen, the weave, the type of thread, and the method of manufacturing design are all from the 1st century AD, not the medieval period.
Absolutely right. So there's another like. Can you just read out a few more?
The pathology tests show the image is perfect, accurate representation of someone who suffered a Roman crucifixion.
Right, let me pick up on that. So it's been looked at by pathologists, times hundreds.
Okay.
Now, when you put this image together, so you've got the front and back, so the Turin shroud is about 14 feet long because it encased seemingly a body. So AI now and pathology experts can take these images, put them together and create an accurate 3-dimensional figure of a crucified body. No amount of theorising over medieval dodgy people flogging linen images can explain that. Again, scientifically proven. Look at my channel. You'll see images that were created.
I guess what's interesting at the time of that, medieval art didn't really put the nails there.
No, they put them in the palms.
Medieval art tended to do, which is inaccurate.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Anything else there, Paul?
Without any opposition from scholars or historians, it is agreed that the first documented appearance of the shroud, as we know today, was in 1354.
That's right.
In Livry, France. But then there's other documents related as far back as 68 AD, which mention an image of our Lord and Saviour at full length.
That's it.
And another one, image of Edessa from 212 AD, and one from Constantinople in 944 AD, which describes an image of Christ as an image not made by human hands.
There you have it. Okay. So we can categorically trace it back to 1200 and something when it was first given by a French knight to the French church as a gift, as the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. And so a lot of skeptics will say, well, that's when it came to us. We know it started there. Where was it before? Well, there is evidence for something describing a similar image going way back to, you're right, 68 AD, 30 years after the resurrection.
Okay. Let me throw a spanner at you.
Please do. Yeah.
I'm sure it's a spanner you're prepared for.
Maybe not.
I'm sure it is. I'm going to read from John. John 20. This is Peter and John running to the tomb. So Peter went out with the other disciple, and they were going towards the tomb. Both of them were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. I find that fun. John's like, I'm a faster runner than Peter.
Yeah.
And stooping to look in, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came following him and went into the tomb. He saw the linen cloths lying there, the face cloth, which had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen cloths, but folded up in place by itself.
Yep.
Yet the shroud is one cloth.
Yeah, but there is a face cloth in existence as well, so which matches the blood type.
So we're talking a full body covering and a face cloth as well.
So I believe...
I just know that comes up as a question.
Yes, it does. I believe that when someone is taken down from crucifixion during the Roman period, they put a cloth over their face.
Right.
So the body is transported to the tomb with a cloth on their face. The cloth is removed, and then the whole body is wrapped in 75 pounds of linen.
Which is where all the spices and everything.
All the spices and everything else. So there is another cloth. I can't quite remember where it is, but the blood type is exactly the same, and the linen is exactly the same as the shroud that we're talking about.
Right.
So yes.
So the cloth...
Any more, Paul, over there from my vast research? Yeah. So there are the lines of evidence that cannot be explained.
Let me ask you another question,
Yes.
and I'm sure you have an answer for this
Go
one.
on.
And it might be an interesting line to go down. There's been a lot of burial cloths in the world.
Mm-hmm.
None of them have images on them.
No.
So why this one?
And this is what cannot be explained. So it perfectly represents a crucified victim. It perfectly represents the gospel accounts of Jesus' injuries, and all of the pollen and the dirt and everything else perfectly represented. Well, I could very flippantly say there isn't another one because there's only ever been one Jesus Christ. But I think that is a good enough explanation, because prove me wrong, nobody can. The only explanation for the creation of this image on this linen is a huge, unimaginable blast of radiation light. Now, scientists can replicate it to a degree. They can, using radiation, create some kind of mark on linen, but not to this extent.
Which is, I guess, how photography works as well. Isn't it?
It does.
To a smaller
Yes,
extent.
because science just vaporize the linen. It cannot be done. The calculations are intergalactic. It's like 34 trillion watts of power would be required, instantaneously released in 40th of a billionth of a second to create the image on the linen. Again, science is telling us this, but science cannot create it.
The blood group, AB, is the least common blood group.
It is, yeah. And it's certainly male blood as well. You see, if it really was a forgery, why would a medieval forger who was just going to flog this thing use human blood? He'd just use pig blood, chicken blood. And of course the image would be painted, but again, they've analysed it time and time again, so it's categorically not painted.
And it wouldn't have been painted in negative.
I mean, come on. It is scientifically proven to be a negative. It's scientifically proven to be encoded with 3D scientific information. Explain that. It cannot be explained. It's the only image on Earth encoded with 3D information. See, to me, I think it's a God humour. I do. Look up to the universe.
Yeah, 2,000 years' time you'll invent something that can look at this.
You'll eventually catch up a little bit with me, and it will make sense. And I truly believe one day it will. And I do truly believe, as a Christian, as a born-again Christian, that when it does make sense and when it is categorically proven, all it needs to be done is categorically proven to be 2,000 years old. That's all, and it will blow the world wide open. And I think if and when it does, the timing will be perfect. Mm. And that timing was set a very long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, I'm out of questions.
Okay.
I've asked all the ones I can ask there. I can't think of any other angles to come at. So.
Okay. Well, I have one finishing remark to make. So, unless someone has a question.
That's what I was wondering. I can't think of any other angles to approach that now. You've answered everything I've thrown at you. Yeah. Can somebody else throw something? There we go. Katie's got a microphone. Let's have a question from Katie.
Just going back to the negative thing. Didn't you say the other week that when you conceived?
Yes.
There's a flash of light.
This is where I want to go to now.
So surely with Jesus being brought back to life, that flash of light is going to be a lot bigger.
Beautiful.
Because it's not like a tiny little concept, and like you say, it's then created that negative image.
I think you've got it. I really do think you've got it. And for me, this was a real clincher, because I learned that we emit light. I learned that for the very first time in history, 2016, science has video recorded the moment of conception, where the sperm impregnates the egg, and in that moment there is an instantaneous flash of light and energy. The shroud points to the universe with its 3D coating, doesn't it? With the 3D coding. The universe was created in a flash of light and energy. Life is created in a flash of light and energy. Jesus is described as the light of the world. And the only scientific explanation for this real thing is that it was created by a flash of intense energy.
Is it in Daniel where it talks about the resurrection? And you'll shine like stars. Is that Daniel? I'm just saying.
I don't know. There's a doctor online called Dr. something Campbell. I don't know whether you've seen him. He came about during COVID. He's a medical doctor. He's got about 3 million followers on YouTube. Again, if you go on the YouTube, find him, Dr. Campbell, the Turin Shroud. He talks about medical issues. And I watched a video of his about a year ago. He went on his own journey to examine the evidence for the Turin Shroud. This is a medical doctor who just talks about illness. He is absolutely convinced that this is the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. It's the only religious video he's ever posted. And I think his video is absolutely brilliant, so do watch that too. So there are many, many, many countless scientists, people who have been on this journey, who truly believe this thing is real. And the offer of $1 million still stands.
So you said that the shroud pointed to the universe.
I believe.
First of all, the first part of the question is, can you explain that? But my thought is, remember the transfiguration on the mountain? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of energy involved in that. Is it not just a similar event as a transfiguration?
Yeah, sounds like it, doesn't it? That was the description of.
I mean, the transfiguration was an epic event, but I don't think it's got a shade on the resurrection.
No, but there was light.
In terms of the power that it would have.
I'm talking about the light.
Yes, light,
the
yes.
The light emitted to create the image, that's what I'm talking about.
Well,
yes.
Light occurs an awful lot, doesn't it? But to answer your question about why it points to the universe, I'll take you back to the 3D coding. So it is the only image in existence on the planet that has been created with a 3D coding to be read only by scientific cameras designed to photograph outer space. It points to the universe to me. And the fact that science says it could only have been created by an instantaneous intergalactic energy outburst of light points to the universe. We agree that the universe was created, bang.
When you say it points to the universe, I guess what you mean is a camera that's designed to only photograph a type of light that exists in the universe.
What I mean points to, it is, I think there's a connection too. Am I making sense?
I think so. You're saying that the light that's in...
It has a connection too, similarity too. So if it's designed to be read by photographic equipment, which is designed to photograph planets,
it wasn't made to do that, though.
No, sorry. Maybe my use of language. What I mean is it seems to have an ironic connection to light bursts of energy with the beginnings of the universe, the beginnings of life, the creation of the shroud, and ironically encoded with this space-age technology.
We have one more from Paul over here, and then we'll have to go home. It's fascinating, this, by the way, because I'm playing the middleman, and
I guess my hesitation with the shroud is that our faith is in Christ and Christ only, and we only look to Him. And one of the problems is Christ plus anything is a problem. So
correct.
Christ plus the shroud is a problem for me. Plus also, we are told within the commandments not to make any graven image. So again, to have something that's got a graven image, even if it's the graven image of Christ, is that's where it's a real battle for me to be able to come to terms with it. But I'm open to there may be a time that comes in the future when, you know, revelation will come on the shroud. I just...
I mean,
Christ and Christ don't need
Yeah,
anything
no,
other than it's just
I
a
get
pop,
that,
you
I get
know.
that. But it certainly helped me get to a point of believing that the resurrection was a real thing. If it was just the shroud, probably not, but the other evidence is more overwhelming than the shroud. But it was an element of evidence that got me there. It certainly got medical doctors that I've watched online who were not believers. They truly believe that the shroud is real evidence of a real event, and they believe that Jesus Christ resurrected because of it. I think that's a good thing.
And I'd be looking at the website and, you know...
Have a look at my YouTube, do.
I mean, I think I'm where you are, Paul. It's something that I've always written off and never thought about.
Yeah.
And I found this interesting because there's things that I've not looked into, and I'll probably look into it further. But I'm glad my faith doesn't rest on it.
No, absolutely.
That's
I get that.
important.
But I think it's a good stepping stone for people like me who are terribly sceptic, who wanted history and science. It's just one of the little stones that may well get somebody there.
I think it's been a fascinating... I always knew this particular topic was going to be more of a...
Yeah, it's a mind bender. It really is.
A dicey one. And actually, we've got a slightly different audience of people tonight than we've had over the past few weeks. That's probably not a bad thing. I think it's made the discussion more lively as a result.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, and I can't give you an explanation for how it was made.
Well, if you could, you'd earn yourself $1 million.
That's my sticking point there, is I can't, so I'm...
And nobody can, so you're in good company.
But I would like $1 million.
Yeah,
so
it would help. It would help, wouldn't it? Yeah.
We'll brainstorm this one. David, thank you. I think that's been a fascinating night. We've touched on some really great topics.
Yeah, brilliant.
Can we give
everybody.
David a big
Thank you.